Is Bali open for tourists? Yes. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see. No, not really. But yeah, Bali is definitely open for tourists at the moment, and I'm gonna sit down now and let you know how you can come to Bali and what the entry requirements are right now. I'm gonna keep this nice and short and sweet for you, hopefully, but let's start with who can come to Bali right now. The answer to this is really easy. Anyone can come to Bali right now if they so wish, but there are still a few hoops that you need to jump through to get here. For example, you can now come to Indonesia as a tourist, but you still can't yet get a tourist visa on arrival or even a tourist visa before you arrive. So the visa you need to get before you come to Bali still is the same visa that I'm currently on, which is a B211A business and social visa. And this visa still costs roughly around $200 for a 2-month visa. So you can't get any visa less than 2 months to come to Bali right now. However, where the requirements for this visa used to be for business purposes, you can now actually purchase this visa and apply for it under the pretense of being a tourist and coming for tourism purposes. Also, just bear in mind that unless you pay for the express service, this visa could take up to 2 weeks to be approved. So let's assume that you've bought the visa or you're planning to buy the visa. Is it possible to fly directly into Bali? Yes, you can actually, but only from certain airports. And as far as I'm aware, these airports are currently Narita in Japan. And from the February the 16th, I think Singapore are planning to put a weekly flight on from Singapore to Bali as well. If you're coming from any country outside of Japan or Singapore, then unfortunately you're still gonna have to transit through Jakarta first before you then take the next flight into Bali. Unlike before, when the Indonesian government announced that they will be letting direct flights into Bali, this time there have actually been flights. As of February the 3rd, the first international flight since March 2020 just landed in Denpasar with around 8 to 9, I think, tourist passengers on board. So things are looking a little bit hopeful again for Indonesia actually opening up properly and for real. Oh, and before you leave your origin country, you need to make sure that you have a PCR test that comes back negative within 48 hours prior to your departure of your home country. So if you're finding this information useful, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. I post Bali content all the time and I think you'll really enjoy it. Let's move on to the next point. Right, so you now have your B211A business visa all set up and ready to go. You've just booked your flight to either Jakarta or Denpasar. What's next? So once you arrive, a mandatory quarantine of 5 days is still in place for any international tourists entering Indonesia. This 5-day quarantine is for all passengers who are fully vaccinated, and as of right now, I'm not entirely sure if non-vaccinated tourists can enter Indonesia or not. If you hold an Indonesian passport, then yes, you can come in unvaccinated, but you will have to do a longer quarantine. But for non-vaccinated foreigners, I'm still not entirely sure if you can come in. I don't think so, but don't quote me on that. The quarantine then has to be carried out in a designated hotel, either in Jakarta or Bali, wherever you land, and I will link these hotels in the description below. There will be one list for Bali and one list for Jakarta. Once you arrive, you will also have to take a mandatory PCR test at the airport, and you will not be allowed to leave the airport until that test comes back negative. And then on your 4th day of quarantine, you will then also have to take another PCR test, and you won't be allowed to leave the quarantine hotel on the 5th day until that test comes back negative as well. And then once you finish your quarantine, you are free. You can travel domestically around Indonesia at your own free will, and that's it. That's the entire steps to get into Indonesia. So a quick checklist of requirements that you need before you leave your home country to enter Indonesia are the B211A business visa, negative PCR test 48 hours prior to a departure from your home country, proof that you've booked your quarantine hotel, and a vaccination certificate to prove that you've had both doses of a vaccine. There are a few more bits of evidence that you may or may not be asked for either prior to departure or as you arrive in Indonesia, and these are proof of a return ticket out of Indonesia, so proof that you have a flight booked to leave Indonesia, proof of travel insurance covering COVID-19, and some people get asked for proof of savings and like their money in their bank, but very few people have been asked that as far as I'm aware, and that's it. That was a full and quick overview of how you can enter Indonesia right now. Please bear in mind that this information does change really quickly, so make sure you use this video in conjunction with your own research of how to get into Indonesia, and if anything major changes after I post this video, I will put that in the description below. Also, a few months back when I first arrived here in Bali, I made a full and detailed video about my experience of how I got from the UK to Bali, so I'll link that down below and up here somewhere if that's something you want to go check out. A few things are different to the previous video, like the quarantine length, but overall the experience is pretty much the same. And feel free to subscribe to my channel for more Bali content and give this video a like if you found it useful, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I will see you again in the next one. Peace.